What's good, guys? We're back at it again with another video. As you can see from the title, today we have the evolution of basketball player mindsets. And in this video, what I specifically want to talk to you guys about is how the evolution or the growth of the game has truly caused the shift in the thinking, the approach, the mindset of so many youth basketball players growing up nowadays. And I'm sure you've heard things like this said from whether it be former players, talking heads. They say things like players from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s are so much tougher. They're smarter. They played more of a team game. If those players were transported to playing right now, they would completely dominate and shut it down. And I'm not saying that those players are completely wrong with their thinking, but what I believe is there are a lot of factors, one of which is the evolution and the growth of the game that has caused the shift in how a lot of sixth graders, ninth graders, even third graders think about the game from jump now, because the way the game was played in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and the business around it is a lot different than the way the game is played in 2024 and the amount of money you can make now from the game of basketball. We're going to have certain players that are probably going to be making around $60 to $70 million a year. That's part of the reason why there is a big mindset change in a lot of these players. What I want to do in this video is give you guys real specific examples of mindset changes that I've observed through generations. And how we're going to do this is we're going to go through the career of a basketball player, talk about certain checkpoints that basketball players have in their career and the differences between the mindsets of an older player and a modern player once they actually got to those certain checkpoints throughout their career. Let's jump right into it. Okay, so the first quote-unquote checkpoint in the career of a basketball player, I would say, is elementary school, because that's the first time most players pick up the sport, fall in love with the sport, and then start to develop dreams and aspirations for what they want to be in the future. So for a lot of kids, you hear them say they want to be a doctor, lawyer, astronaut. Before a certain percentage of kids, including me at that time, I wanted to be a professional basketball player, partially because I was taller than everyone else. People telling me, oh, you should play basketball. But for the most part, I was thinking about, okay, in the future, I want to be a professional basketball player. And keep in mind, I was in elementary school, I'd say about 2006, 2007, 2008. Now, I want you to think about that mindset I had in elementary school. Of course, I want to become an NBA basketball player, right? Bring it all the way back to when Wilt Chamberlain was in elementary school. All the kids around that age wanted to be not NBA basketball players. They wanted to be Harlem Globetrotters. I wanted to bring it up, and I wanted to start this video with this so you guys would understand how fast mindset changes happen between generations. And all it takes is a new technology, a new application, a new innovation. And all of a sudden, I want you guys really to think about this. Wilt Chamberlain and a lot of the kids that were growing around at that time period wanted to be Harlem Globetrotters. After the NBA became popular, when certain players were drafted into the NBA and had success, we're going to talk about that. Every player after that now all of a sudden did not aspire to be a Globetrotter. They wanted to be an NBA basketball player. Just keep that in mind as we go throughout the video. The second checkpoint that I want to talk to you guys about is middle school, because in middle school, this is the time where you start to have a lot of players starting to take the game seriously. You have a lot of players who are starting to meet middle school coaches who are a part of high school feeder programs. So you have better coaching, more intense coaching. And then you also have certain players starting to travel and play AAU, see the country, see what other talent is out there. Basically, middle school is the time period for basketball players where their mindsets start to say, okay, no, I'm going to specialize. I want to be a college basketball player. I want to be a professional basketball player, and I'm going to take it serious and do the work necessary to get there. I remember being in middle school, and I think this is the time where the Damon Harge videos were coming out. So I remember literally watching him. I think he might have been a little bit younger than me, but I'm watching him and I'm like, oh, like I got to start to take this serious. Like this is the time where guys are really starting to put that work in, trying to separate from everyone else. And here's the thing, that time period, those Damon Harge videos, I'm telling you guys, I think 2009, 2010, that was part of the time period where we had a lot of players start to have a shifted mindset from back in the day. There was no social media. You couldn't get all that attention. If a player wants to learn about another player, he has to go get a magazine and read about him. He can't just see him instantaneously and compare himself. He doesn't have that big of an ego because he doesn't have 100,000 followers, 1 million views, none of those things. But once those Damon Harge videos started, I'm telling you guys, I think there was a mindset shift in a lot of basketball players. I remember sitting in middle school in typing class, computer class, watching his mixtapes. And in my mind, all of a sudden, I go, wait, as a player in middle school, 6th grade or 7th grade, I can have a mixtape with millions of views on it. I can become a celebrity now in middle school. In that 2009, 2010 range, I'm telling you guys, I think there are so many youth basketball players in all the generations that have come after who all of a sudden it's not just about the game. It's, oh, I can get 1 million views. It's, oh, I can get 1 million followers. Oh, and from those followers, from those views, I can do whatever I want. People sending me all this stuff. I'm telling you guys, I really think that's when it started. And again, I want you guys to realize that these mindset changes, these shifts, they're happening fast. In 2005, YouTube came out. In 2007, the first iPhone came out. The time period I'm talking about is 2009, 2010, when those Damon Hards videos came out. So you see what I'm trying to say? It does not take long before an entire generation's mindset can be shifted. And I ain't even talk about the parents. You don't think that a parent of a player who didn't have a mixtape, or a parent of a player that was too young to have a mixtape at the time, weren't sitting there thinking to themselves, especially the ones that, you know, have their own aspirations of fame and fortune? Like, wait a second. If I can get my son or daughter the right amount of exposure and views, he or she can become a business in middle school. He can help our entire family, turn our entire family into a business from an early age. You don't think there were any parents who were thinking like that? And we wonder why for certain players, it feels like their priority is more, you know, fame and financials rather than the love of the game. It's because, I'm telling you guys, they saw players and families and parents come before them, utilize the system to their financial benefit, and all they're trying to do is do the same. And keep in mind, this was before NIL. Imagine how it is now with NIL. Now you guys understand why, as a parent, as a player, as a family, we might come to the decision that, yeah, let's hold you back for 1 or 2, maybe even 3 years, and let you play against, you know, not as good competition so you can dominate on camera. We put those dominant performances on YouTube, on the internet. All of a sudden, you're an extremely popular player because, as people saw, you were so dominant, not realizing how much older you are than everyone else. And then by the time you get to the point where, okay, people realize maybe that player isn't what we thought he was, we've already made our money. Now, as we move into our next checkpoint, high school and AAU, I want you guys to keep in mind some of the mindset changes that we've talked about prior to this, because you know, those mindset changes that we talked about are pretty much the mindset of a basketball player growing up nowadays, in terms of the emphasis on social media, the emphasis on followers, fame, especially now financials as well. Certain players might not be inclined to play up against better competition. They'd rather play down against players that aren't as good as them, like we said, so that they can dominate on camera and boost their exposure that way. And keep in mind, all of these things, all these mindset changes that I'm talking about, players nowadays are bringing into high school and AAU, where there is more intense coaching, more responsibility, and this is the place where players really start to separate in terms of, no, this player's going to college, this player probably isn't. High school is that time, AAU is that time. This is also the time period where a lot of players meet tougher coaches, tougher competition. But keep in mind, these are the same players that are now bringing in the mindset that the old players didn't have, because they didn't have the egos, because they didn't have the attention, the followers, the money, none of that. The modern players are coming in now with all the mindset changes that I've talked about. So when they come across a situation where a coach does not want to put them on varsity freshman year, we have a lot of players now, when they enter into high school and that's their situation, their first answer is to transfer and go somewhere else that will let them play on varsity first year. What these players don't realize is, even when I was a freshman in high school, again, this is how fast things change. When I was a freshman in high school, it was still seen as a badge of honor to be playing varsity as a freshman. Nowadays, because of the egos and the entitlement that have come from certain mindset changes, players are entering high school with the expectation of playing on varsity. And if they do not play on varsity, the answer is, we're not going to fight through adversity and play JV and do whatever the coach says. But we're going to transfer to a school that, let's be honest, if you didn't make varsity at a certain school, the school that you're probably transferring to probably has less competition, which is why you can make varsity. That's the better option, instead of fighting through adversity. Why? Because of the mindset changes and the entitlement that have come from all the things we've talked about. This is also why certain coaches are starting to realize that players aren't as receptive to the coaching of old. Players aren't as receptive to you getting in their face and yelling at them. Also, keep in mind, when I was a freshman, which was, I think, 2013, 2014 to obviously 2016, 2017, that was the end of my high school career. That still was the norm. The coaches getting in your face. I told you the stories about sellers and everything. That was the norm at that time. So within 10 years, now we have a new generation of players that they don't want to hear you yell at them. Why are you yelling at me? I probably make more than you right now. I'm telling you guys, this is the mindset that some players have. So for a lot of coaches, they're finding out that it's not really working anymore to say, go over here and do this because I told you so. No, you're going to have to tell them, go over here and do this because of this, this, and this. These are the reasons why. And it seems like that's what players now need. Another thing that doesn't help the egos and the entitlement and the mindset of the modern player is AAU. And keep in mind, I'm not saying AAU is the worst thing ever. No, it is necessary. Players need that for exposure. But what I mean is the things that are prioritized in the AAU environment feed into the modern mindset that a lot of these players have. What I mean by that is AAU, as I've said on the channel so many times, it's an ISO game. It's not much of a team game, specifically in EYBL. Like I said in that video, it was a lot of on ball, getting into my bag and getting my shot off. But here's the thing. It's not on the fault of the player. In my opinion, this is by design. Before Magic, Bird, and Michael got to the NBA was more of a team game, right? But once those guys got into the NBA, all of a sudden the NBA realized that we can become more marketable if we market our superstars. So all of a sudden you have Magic versus Bird. All of a sudden, Jordan is being pushed as the guy that's leading the charge forward. Obviously, we know about his shoes and the impact that had. So from that point forward, the NBA went away from a team focus, which is more of what the NFL is. No, it went to a individual focus. Who's the best player? Who's the superstar? We're going to market him. And all we've been seeing is a trickle-down effect. I remember even when I was back playing AAU that the best players in the circuit, playing in the circuit that year, they were the players that had posters around the gym. And keep in mind, this is when we are 16, 17 years old. So you don't think a high school basketball player who's walking into an AAU tournament, and there's my face right there, and there's my face right there, you think I'm not going to feel some type of way, or I'm going to listen to somebody when a coach tries to tell me what to do, or somebody here tells me what to do, or somebody says I can't take a shot I want? This is the type of mindset that I'm telling you guys AAU does strengthen within a lot of players, more of an individual, egotistical mindset. And of course, this mindset, like I said, bleeds onto the court, into the style of play. But again, this is not on the player. In the NBA, what did they do when they wanted to market more of their players, more of their superstars, get more highlight plays? Made the lane wider, no hand checking. You can't be in the lane for too long. So now you've given the best players in the world more space to operate so that they can make more highlight plays so that you can market them more. So what do you expect 16, 17, 18-year-olds who want to get there one day, who also have all the mindset changes that we've talked about prior? How do you think those players are going to look when they step onto an AAU court? Now, as we move into our next checkpoint, college, which honestly now is just another level of professional basketball, all those same players that I've been talking about who had those mindset changes, who now are a little bit more fame and fortune focused, that now play the game with a little bit more of an individualized mindset. We can't be surprised when certain players get to college and they decide after their first year, I'm done with this college thing. I want to jump to the NBA. Because of everything that has happened prior in their entire life, everything that they've been learning, everything that they've been seeing, has been prioritizing getting to the NBA as fast as possible, getting to the money as fast as possible, and not really running your own race. Where back in the day, almost every single star player stayed in college for 2 years, 3 years, and a lot of them 4 years, and actually graduated before they went to that next level, which was the NBA. And why those players decided to stay in college all 4 years is because they didn't have the attention in middle school or in high school. They didn't have all these yes men in their ear or agents just trying to get them to the league so that they can get their percentage off of how much they make. They didn't have people telling them every single day that they were pros and that you could potentially make $500 million playing this game of basketball. Those players weren't thinking about any of that. So by the time they graduated high school, they still thought they had things to learn. They still thought in their head that they had such a long way to go before they were even good enough to compete at the NBA level. And the incentive to get there wasn't as high because, again, dudes weren't making $60 to $70 million a year. Now, I want you guys to compare that to a player coming up now in NIL, where by the time you hit middle school, I don't even know, elementary school, all of a sudden you can become an NIL athlete. People can sponsor you. You can start to make money from an extremely, extremely young age, not to mention social media, not to mention attention, and all those things are going into the mindset of the modern basketball player nowadays. So I hope this answers the question for anyone who wonders why players right now might seem more soft, or they're a lot more money focused, brand focused. Even their play on the court is a lot more individualized. It isn't as much as a team game. I hope that this video answered those questions for a lot of you guys. And again, the fault is not on the players. The players that are growing up nowadays are living in a world that's entirely different than any world that anyone has lived in prior. What I believe we need to do is figure out how to integrate more of an older approach into this modern era, because I really feel like it'll help so many basketball players, not only in America, but around the world. But one thing on that point, in terms of an international game, the things that I'm talking about that our players in America experience, social media, fame, finances, all that, not really experiencing it as much yet overseas, which is why, like I've said in other videos, it seems like players that are coming from overseas are a lot more professional, a lot more fundamental. They play more of a team game. It's because they don't have to deal with those things that we talked about prior. Like, share, subscribe, turn on post notifications. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you guys next time with the next video.